Shut up and sit down.
Hey everybody!
Hey guys!
Hello! Couch Animalz Podcast, episode 3. How is everybody? Welcome back, Sam.
Hello, hello.
How was your trip?
It was good.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the temperature in Arizona while you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's an affront to society.
It sucked. It was like 108.
Why?
Ah.
Why would you do that? That's terrible.
And like the buildings there just soak up all the heat and then throw it back at you.
It's kind of like you ever been to like a blacktop when you were a kid, like on the playground? It's like that, but amplified.
Whereas you're just like slowly melting your sneakers, but you're trying to ignore it because you're doing a really good job in kickball. But we should actually probably go around and introduce ourselves for the people who are audio listeners.
Hello. Yeah,
well, you should do it every podcast. You always introduce people.
Danny, hi, I'm here.
I'm Chris.
Hello, I am Sam.
Hi, it's Moses.
Moses supposes. I'm not going to finish it. He hates it.
He hates it so much.
I've never heard it before.
Speaking of things that we hate, a little bit of transition. Today we're going to be going over what we value in our media. I mean, we sit here, we're talking about media, we're reacting to media, we're talking about news. We haven't even established what we like about it.
It's true. All of our shows revolve around watching things and then talking about watching things.
Yeah. So, I as on the Weeb Corner, I say, I dislike anime. And a lot of the reasons that I dislike anime is because the writing style, I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, plot and stuff and, using things and devices to continue the plot are important to me. And most of the time when you watch an anime, the plot is, we did the thing. Oh, now there's magically another evil thing that we have to do. Or the solution comes out of nowhere. And that's just lazy writing, in my opinion.
A little bit.
Too much Deus Ex Machina for you?
Yeah, exactly.
The boss's boss, having a bigger boss. I love it. I love Bleach.
Yeah.
Bleach is so good about that.
Skeletor and Hordak, if you've ever watched all the old He-Mans and She-Ras.
Oh, yeah. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I love that show.
So good.
I watched so much He-Man as a kid.
I've seen He-Man says hey, that's about it.
That is quality internet.
It is. That's transcends time.
It really does. That joke's going to be good forever.
I think I'm going to go ahead and call that the epitome of media for me. So.
It's the best thing I've ever seen made.
For the memes. For the memes. I mean, for the memes, that's valid critique.
Yeah.
Lots of things are good for that.
That's true.
That's our mini episode about Weeb Corner. Thank you so much for coming.
That's
great.
We were quoting vines to mic tests.
Yeah, that was funny. We should just go ahead and go down the line and. Sure. I mean, it's your show, so you start us off.
Yeah. Well, like I said, writing is very important to me. It's very important for me to have well-developed characters, and it doesn't really matter to me if they continue living or you kill them off, or as long as they had a reason for being in the story, and their reason for being in the story was important to the story. I'm not saying you can't have side characters and such, but they should be treated as such.
Right.
Uncle Ben?
Uncle Ben's great. That's a great characterization across the comics. He taught Spider-Man an important lesson that is repeated throughout the rest of the comic book series. And all the medias, they kill Uncle Ben every time. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, it's key to the creation of Spider-Man.
They made so many origin movies now. I feel like everybody should know it. And that's another thing. Like if you're making, if you're doing a reboot, like they do every 2 years now for everything, you don't need to reestablish that Spider-Man's uncle died, and he taught him that the greatest power is responsibility.
Spoiler alert.
King Kong dies. By the way, y'all want to see that spoiler thing?
Yeah.
Jesus characters and characterization is important to me,
All right.
So what's a show that has good characterization that you really like for it?
BoJack Horseman.
Yeah?
BoJack Horseman is fantastic.
I love the pressure.
Not only the main character, BoJack, but in all of his auxiliary characters, they all have a reason for being that's outside of the main character and outside of the main plot, and they all have their own mini stories and their own thoughts and feelings that they express, not because of someone else, but because of their own feelings and actions. Take, for example, Princess Carolyn. Princess Carolyn is introduced as a character only to be BoJack's agent. just somebody to get him a job, and she kind of starts kind of nagging at the very beginning. But
Mm-hmm.
as she gets characterized over the rest of the series, she's an older woman. She isn't married, but she wants children. So that's a whole big plot push that she has in terms of her interactions with different characters and the auxiliary. The way that she goes about her career, very career focused, like somebody that is obviously very good and successful, but she's still missing something, and her search is kind of where her characterization comes in. So, I mean, I could give 100 more examples of BoJack characters.
All right, well, it's a TV show. Tell us about a movie that you think really exemplifies good writing and characterization.
A movie that really exemplifies good characterization. I really enjoy Spirited Away. Spirited Away is actually a really great characterization because not only through the villains and the main character, but also like Haku and even like a small character like the little fluff balls, fluff balls, little soot balls that she hangs out with. Yeah. Like those are cute. They're just there to be cute and show some humanization.
Yeah, the little soot sprites.
Yeah,
I love those things so much.
They're there to show humanization. Like they don't need to speak. They serve their purpose. That was good writing. That was good characterization.
Okay. I guess when it comes to really any form of media, the thing to me that is always super important, because I spend a lot of my time watching media as opposed to like listening to it, because media is a very large and wide ocean, whether it be audio, video, or even if you really want to get down to it, like technical media, like the
interactive media.
Yeah, the bones and tendons behind the things that we see on the screen. But for me, when it comes to visual media, the stuff that really revs my engine these days anyway is a distinct visual style that not only plays into the show or movie, but also helps enable the characters in its own way and adds to their characterization, kind of building off what you're talking about.
Like a Wes Anderson movie? You a big fan of Wes Anderson?
I do love Wes Anderson stuff. But actually, my favorite example from recent years is, you guys can't see it because it's off camera, but like literally right above my head right now is a Blade Runner 2049 poster. That's one of my favorite examples of using visuals and colorization in a movie to help push along not only the narrative but the characters. Everything about that movie is so like handcrafted and like in its perfect place to show off what's happening not only in that scene but in the overarching story of the film.
So how about music? Music tie in with that for you too?
Music definitely has a big part in that kind of stuff, but like I said, my main thing is the visual stuff. Like, I'm all about what I'm seeing on the screen.
I love psychedelics.
Have you seen Drive?
I have seen Drive. I love Drive.
Baby Driver?
Yeah, not Baby Driver, Drive.
I have also seen Baby Driver, which was another great example of that. Yep, you got another poster over there.
I haven't seen it.
You should just do a shot of the poster.
Yeah, sure. We'll give them what they want. Give them the shot.
Give the people what they want.
Give them the posters.
For the people who are just listening to our SoundCloud,
Scene breaking.
we're currently just sitting around on a couch. To your above, there's a beautiful shot of Murder on the Orient Express, Mother, Blade Runner, Kong, La La Land,
Baby Driver,
and
Baby Driver over there in the
Driver of
corner.
Babies. No worries, he's of age.
Nobody
It's
puts
okay.
Baby Driver in the corner.
Nobody puts Baby Driver.
Apparently Chris does. It's sad.
I did put Baby Driver in the corner, which was not intentional, but the joke still works.
Yeah, there it is. It's over there, corner. Sad.
But yeah, that's a big thing for me. Is I need the visuals to match the story.
I'm a big dialogue person, and I really like shows that have a lot of dialogue and have a lot of characterization through dialogue, but at the same time, if you can make your characters apparent without dialogue, like in Drive, like that movie has very little dialogue, honestly, but all of its visuals and just like him driving through the streets at night, the music that's pounding the entire time, the characters, and when they interact with one another, it's still like a very visually pleasing thing. So yeah, it's important.
And as far as TV shows go, one of my favorite examples when it comes to visual storytelling and having the visuals match the character is the very first episode of Samurai Jack. Like, everybody, like, that show gets classified as a kid's show, but that show is so, like, was number one ahead of its time by a huge stretch. And is also just for everybody. I think everybody can get something out of Samurai Jack.
Long ago in a distant land.
But here's the thing. But besides the intro, a solid 70% of that first episode is totally silent except for music and the visuals. Mm-hmm. And it tells this whole and complete story about where Jack came from. How does he know the things that he knows? Why is he an expert in martial arts? Why does he feel the need to go hunt down, these people? Where are his people? Like, all these things.
All those are answered immediately.
Yeah. And it's not through some big expositional speech. It's, it's not Jack sitting by a fire saying, long ago I, studied martial arts at the hands of many masters. No, we're just going to show him learning martial arts. And I loved that so much. It's still one of my favorite episodes of television of all time.
Mm-hmm. What's important to you guys?
Yeah. For me, I really like characters that have, like, non-tropey roles. I don't really like having here's the hero of the story and here's the villain. I like it when there's a lot more, like, everyone has their own redeeming qualities and everyone has their own things that make them, human, not great people. Yeah. Everyone makes their own mistakes. Like, Breaking Bad, I think, was one of the shows that did that better than anything else.
Yeah.
The whole thing was just showing one guy going from this nice guy to drug kingpin and just the sort of devolving into a lust for power that's, like, spoiler alert, ends up tearing apart his family when that is the one thing he started out doing this to protect.
But you know what the real message of Breaking Bad is? The American healthcare system is shit.
Yeah.
But the man had to start selling meth. Yeah. To pay for his cancer. That's horrible.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like what you really like in a story or movies, TV shows, is you like the shades of gray in between the extremes of black and white of characterization.
Absolutely.
You like the people that are sort of in the middle, so you probably really like a lot of anti-hero stuff.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
50 Shades.
Jesus Christ.
Wrong gray.
Get out of here.
Have you read it? I have not read it. I'm not promoting
50
it.
Shades of Grey was started by Twilight fan fiction. So if you ever...
I feel like
that's another
Get
thing
shamed.
I love. Twilight. No.
It's huge. All right, well, you told us about a show that you really like that really emphasizes the things that you enjoy in media. What about a movie? What's a movie that really finds that sweet spot in the gray for you?
Oh, man. That's a good one. Trying to think. I feel like, this is going to seem a little bit like a cop-out answer, but when you get to The Dark Knight, actually, I feel like Batman's motivations are not all that great in the movie. And the Joker, I don't think he's evil as much as he's crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where you can really, if you try to, I like the villain you can empathize with and the hero who you can question. Like, you had the whole scene with Lucius Fox where Batman had set up the whole relay system where he's spying on the entire city.
Yeah, the ultimate Skynet.
And, like, he puts in the thing to destroy it, but he had that for a while up and running before it was destroyed. He is totally fine doing morally questionable and morally wrong things to get where he's going.
I think that's a really good point. And that's a running theme throughout the entirety of Batman's character run. Minus his originals back in the 30s and 40s where he the original Batman comics were a lot more about detective stories than they were about him being a superhero.
Yeah. DC Comics.
Yeah, Detective Comics. That's the whole thing. But the whole duality of man and, how far are you willing to go to stop evil? How evil are you willing to become to try and purge crime in the city?
I think The Killing Joke does a great job of that. In terms of written media. We're talking about visual and like movies and stuff, but I think written media, that one does a great job.
Yeah, technically there was a movie adaptation of The Killing Joke. It just wasn't very good.
We don't talk about that. Poor Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was like, I'm never doing the Joker again unless they do the killing joke. And then they're like, hey, we're doing the killing joke. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll be the Joker again. And then he's like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Do you think...
I feel like I would say Watchmen for it, but I haven't seen it.
You would love it.
I read Watchmen.
I literally have a copy
of
over there. I will hand you the copy on your way out the door.
All right. The director's cut of Watchmen is actually
the ultimate
fantastic. Cut. Yeah. But you think they would have explored that more? Because one of my problems with the Dark Knight trilogy, like the newer one with Christopher Nolan, was that in the third one it kind of faltered compared. Like, it's better than Batman Begins, but Batman Begins was.
I would disagree. I'd say Batman Begins is way better than The Dark Knight Rises.
Do you think if Heath Ledger had...
by a significant margin.
What I was getting at is, you think if Heath Ledger hadn't have died, you think there would have been like more exploration of that morally gray area?
Oh, for sure.
Batman?
I feel like...
dig himself out of a pit?
Well, I feel like if Heath Ledger had lived, we would have just gotten more Joker in the third one, which we all wanted. I mean, Joker is the villain of all villains. Like, that's actually something when you're looking at comic books and comic book media in general, DC has always had better villains, in my opinion. It feels like a lot of times Marvel...
What do you mean? Big Wheel is the greatest villain ever.
Like, don't get me wrong. Marvel still has characters like Doctor Doom and, like, also, like, Killmonger and... also, like, they have Thanos, Galactus. They have really good villains. But just by quantity of, like, how many good villains you have versus how many bad villains you have... DC's got him, kicked by a mile just in Batman.
Yeah. Batman kind of carries a lot of DC, I think.
Doctor Doom's a great example of another gray area villain, though. There was one arc with Doctor Doom where he had seen all possible futures, and the only one in which humanity survived is the one in which he took over and became dictator of the world.
Doom is a great character. Like that, I think that's the problem with a lot of the Fantastic Four movies that they do, is they kind of skip over the characterization of Doom. The Fantastic Four was not cool because they were the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four was cool because of Doctor Doom.
Yeah. That's why I'm actually like really worried, because I don't know if you guys saw that headline about this, but Comcast just put in a bid for the 21st Century Fox merger.
Oh no.
Yeah. Disney's original offer $54 billion. Comcast said $65 billion. So we'll see if Disney's willing to try and outbid them for 21st Century Fox, but
I don't want either of them to have them. That's monopolizing.
I'm not.
I will bid $10.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna say for, if we're looking at macro for the good of Hollywood and entertainment media, is it a good thing or not for Disney to own 40% of all media coming out of the U.S.?
No,
it's not. I mean, objectively by numbers, it's not. But like, if you're speaking strictly from a fanboy perspective, I would love to see OG Marvel Studios get their hands on the X-Men and Fantastic Four again, because it would bring so many like fresh concepts to the MCU and so many different interactions that they could do.
Speaking of the X-Men movies, okay, so you know how they did X-Men Origins Wolverine?
And how it was dog shit?
And then the one after that was X-Men First Class, which was a good movie.
That movie was amazing. I love First Class.
Do you know that X-Men First Class was originally X-Men Origins Magneto?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that was a really good movie. I wish they would do more of that. I wish, like, if we could just get an origin story on Doctor Doom, that would be a great 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
It's because his mom. That's most of the reason.
Yeah.
She was sick. What do you value critically, Moses?
Value critically? Oh, boy. Media-wise, I would say audio tracks. That's my big thing. I am always listening to music, and I think it's great. And for that regards, actually, my prime example of that, while also being visually stunning, is Blade Runner 2049.
Hey.
It hasn't shot back to the original Blade Runner movies with these kind of large, expansive, non-lyrical place sound effects, and you're like, what the fuck? It gives you this kind of space eerie, futuristic vibe without having this haunting tunes of some distorted choir, some shit like that. And I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, so for audio engaging, yeah, that's it. For me, I think a soundtrack really makes a lot of a good film. Like, I can't think.
Guardians?
Guardians? Oh, man, Guardians. Classic, talking about, like, 90s, just like... Yeah, we have, stuff we grew up with. It was excellent, you know. And of course we have modern movies such as Black Panther, which is kind of a wonderful twist on it. Of course, has Kendrick Lamar's production all over it. It's amazing. It's great.
You want to know my favorite thing about K-Dot doing a lot of the Black Panther music and having seen the movie and everything is just how much of his lyrics they cut out of the movie.
They really did.
It's like, yeah, this is a dope beat. Like, oh, look, there's Kendrick talking, and it's in the background.
And he's gone.
Oh,
look, it's Kendrick, and go back.
Back to the beat. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
Disney does not like.
You know what I think is actually a really good example of that? Annihilation. That movie was so good. Did you guys see it?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, so it was a sci-fi flick that came out earlier this year. That was just so good. It's actually based off a book of the same name, but it stars Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac.
All right, beautiful. I'm already.
Oh,
yeah,
Natalie Portman's
beautiful. Oh, so good.
It's visually stunning. It's an amazing mix between the sci-fi and horror genres, and falls under my category of like I love visual stuff, and that movie is so heavy on the visuals. But the soundtrack for that movie is killer. There's one particular scene near the end of the movie that just when I watched it in the theater, they had the audio turned up. Probably a little too loud because...
Oh, yeah. Did we see that together?
Yeah, we saw that one together.
Yeah, that was way too loud. That was way too fucking loud.
But it made a big impact during that scene near the end where the whole theater was just vibrating from the bass. And it
like
was
seeing Inception?
No, we're not talking like bass blast. We're talking like literally a low, like almost subsonic, just rumble in the soundtrack that was basically shaking the theater.
It was like tearing you apart.
There's
It
a
was
director
amazing.
that's really big into sound design. Like they all are. Obviously.
Christopher Nolan.
But it might have been Nolan.
Christopher Nolan's huge on
They're
sound
talking
design.
about they will not like release their movie until they like sit in a theater in like their favorite spot and have the audio like a certain way. They're like, no, we got to go back and re-record that. We got to edit.
We got to go back, Morty. We got to go back.
We're just dropping all these Rick and Morty quotes.
Listen, man.
Who doesn't like it?
It's
Here's
very
an example
quotable.
of a good characterization of a show. Like, there you go. They can be wacky and do weird stuff.
Listen.
And they also have original music pieces. Everyone knows Evil Morty's sound bit. It is so good.
It's so iconic.
Yes. And
the fact that they used 9 Inch Nails' "Hurt" for the one season finale, that song, I still have a hard time listening to that song because I get flashbacks.
It's tough, man. For something that's really lighthearted that I actually love and I don't think we'll talk about enough is the little musical pieces from Bob's Burgers.
Yes.
They're so cute.
Yes.
It ties in the plot of the show of each episode really well. It's a characterization of brings all the characters of the show all together, and it's lighthearted.
You know, they actually have albums out now.
See?
With the Bob's Burgers music.
Man, I love Kid Bob.
Another example of a great TV show with good characterization of the characters, even though it's serialized / like corporate as hell and like Fox.
Well, you know what's actually crazy is when I first saw the original promos for Bob's Burgers, I was so immediately off-put.
By the visual style?
Not just the visual style, which has very much grown on me, and I actually love the visual style now. But because it was just so jarring versus what I was watching at the current time. But also the joke that they decided to blast for the main promos was that joke from the first couple. I think it's in the first episode where they're talking about how their parents are grinding their meat in the basement, and it's the jokes about how they're grinding up human meat. Yeah, that is the first episode. But I don't know. It was just the way it played in the promo on TBS. I was just like, I'm not on board with this. And then because I always say that I will give it a shot. I will give it an honest to goodness shot. Even back in high school when Twilight first came out, I was like, maybe I'm being too harsh. I will give it a shot.
You were not.
My ass was asleep in 30 minutes.
We're going to have someone watching this who's going to be so mad. They're going to be like, Twilight's a good show, you bastards.
Like,
I have seen exactly one Twilight movie, and it was not the first one. It was the second one.
Oh, man, they forced us. I had to go to summer boarding school. It's where I met a good friend of mine ages ago. But, yeah, we saw the second Twilight movie. They bust a whole camp worth of kids who are like 13 to 17 years old to go watch the second Twilight. We had to go see. Yeah, no, it was bad.
Yeah,
bad, man.
But okay, so you talked about a movie that you really like the sound design for, and now you've talked about Bob's Burgers. Do you have any other shows that are really stand out for
audio
sound design?
Shoot.
Because I can think of one that you and me are both watching right now that has some very important sound design elements.
My Hero Academia?
Hell yes.
Yeah!
So
It's a good show. Don't let them...
Your show is ass.
It's so good.
Oh, sorry. Your show is ass.
Show.
that's right. Speak it at the camera.
There you go.
I mean the mic. Jesus.
Oh.
But God, I love the soundtrack to My Hero Academia so much. The newest opening for season 3, I actually kind of the same as Bob's Burgers. Initially, I was really put off by, but the second I watched the second episode, I was like, I'm so on board. I love this song. This is my favorite intro.
Watch our Weeb Corner.
Dude, watch Weeb Corner. We talk about anime. If you enjoy that,
If they're listening to this, I'm sure they watch me.
that's not necessarily true. I mean, we get a
You're
lot
right,
more
you're
views
right.
on some videos than others. The podcast is actually our least watched show, which we understand it's a long show, so we get it.
It is a podcast. I mean, like,
Especially when it's 4 guys that you don't know on the internet.
Hey,
like,
before guys being dudes being guys.
it's
Talking
just
about
guys being dudes.
dudes being guys.
Am I?
What's
I'm
wrong
whatever
with
you want me to be. I'm like Ditto.
That's true.
Yeah. We just shove you in a pen with someone else and something happens.
We had to market ourselves to our audience.
The thing about Bob's Burgers, though, I feel like that one's really hard to cut a promo for because so much of that show is just getting like really good stand-up comedians in there and having them all record together. They don't just come in and do lines. They're all in studio together, riffing off of each other, and it's the interactions that make it so good. And it's hard to get that in a 30-second clip.
Wow.
Well, actually, one of my favorite videos that I've seen kind of floating around Facebook over the past couple months is a live reading that the cast of Bob's Burgers did with I forget exactly what the premise was. It was just they were just live reading a script that someone had sent them, and it was just so funny. But yeah, I mean...
Can I tell you a critical point of why I dislike your My Hero Academia based off the things I was just talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the main character is a little bitch. I said that a lot in the review, but like, once you've established that your character is a weakling, which honestly his visual design already did. So like anything else is just kind of extra, and that's really the point I'm getting at here. There was no development for him. It was just, oh look, he's a little runt. Oh look, he's getting bullied. Oh look, he's also getting a slime monster shoved down his throat.
Something else I would like to mention, just as a aside. You only watched the first 2 episodes. Sam, do those things improve in the 3rd episode?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, he does do some more stuff. Like, there's a whole montage.
That's also lazy writing, in my opinion.
It is.
Montages.
Don't you dare disrespect montages on my podcast.
Rocky did it first. Rocky did it well. Every other thing, garbage. Every other montage.
Just saying that as an ode to Rocky, that's all.
That's not an ode to Rocky.
It is.
Everything's an ode to Rocky.
You should not be oding Rocky.
Hey, Sylvester Stallone, he's a good guy.
I love the Rocky movies, but you should not ode Rocky movies.
Never seen one.
Really? That surprises me.
I recommend watching Rocky 3 if you're gonna watch one.
Skip the first 2.
Get
first
real
2,
confused.
He just gets his ass kicked by Apollo Creed, then he kicks Apollo Creed's ass, and then Apollo Creed becomes his trainer, which is way better characterization for Apollo Creed.
Spoilers. Literally hasn't seen the movies.
The movies are so old.
I just mentioned I hadn't seen them.
Yeah. Also,
Adrian!
obviously showed an interest in possibly watching them. Like, although I will
think
say
that
if you do
spoilers
end up
ruin
watching
things.
the Rocky movies, when you get to Creed is, following my talk about visual stuff earlier, it has one of the coolest action shots I've ever seen. It is a single take scene where the camera does not cut or there's no editing magic. It's literally just one long shot. And what they actually did was they had the cameraman that was going to be working that shot take boxing lessons for several months so he could learn how to dip in and out of the fight while shooting it. And it is one of the coolest things I've seen in a movie in a long time.
No, that's really neat.
It is really impressive to watch, not just from a technical standpoint, but it just looks so good.
John Wick.
John Wick.
See, this is what I'm getting at when I talk about spoilers not being important to me and they don't ruin something. Because me just telling you the ending of something does not make you experience that media. That tells me That tells you what the end of the media is, not the journey there, not the way that ending looks. I could be a wonderful person that could describe every single detail of a scene frame by frame, but it's not gonna...
It's all the suspense.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, what's gonna happen? He's been trading all this time, I assume, and now he's got this big fight. How's it gonna go? Oh, I'm rooting for this dude. I hope he wins at the end of this movie.
Green Mile.
And you killed it. God damn, dude. Just immediately cut to a really dark episode.
Straight up.
Never seen it.
See?
I
Alright, we're
suppose,
talking about...
You still feel those feelings when you're watching. Like,
Not
even
as
if
much.
you know that
Yeah.
he's going to lose, even if you know some character's
Now
going to
that
die...
you know for a fact.
See, but that's the
movement
thing, though.
to that
That's...
is still like an experience.
Like, I get what you're
It's
saying.
an experience, but it's an entirely different experience
Yes.
if you know where you're headed.
Yes.
Which
Yes,
changes if you've already know the movie.
Yeah.
The curse of knowledge.
It's one of the things where, like, it's actually kind of going back to your storytelling and, like, how important story is when you're talking about developing characters. Shows like all the TV dramas, really, like shows like House and Grey's Anatomy and all that stuff, they really lose their rewatchability once you've seen them already, because so much of the show hinges on like what's going to happen to this character, and they put so much emphasis on like cutting away. It's like you don't know if they died, but like if you've seen the episodes afterwards, you know he's going to be fine.
Watch
the writing.
Yes,
You watch it for the suspense.
Yes. And
because you enjoy that feeling of predicting and then being surprised and being wrong and being like, oh, I didn't see that coming. How cool. Or you predict it and you're right and you're like, yes, I nailed it. I'm smart.
Yeah. Which is a great feeling.
Shout out to horror movies, which I think do an excellent part of that, because you cannot rewatch horror movies because they're...
Jason Voorhees kills people.
Yeah. And it's like...
See nothing.
Certain horror movies you can't rewatch.
Fact. Slashers.
A lot of the movies that you and me like, you can definitely rewatch a lot. Like, you can definitely rewatch Hereditary. Which, like,
yeah.
Congrats to that front seat reviews on the channel. That's our highest viewed video now.
Yeah,
it's inching closer to 100 views. We're at 92 right now.
Amazing.
It's nuts.
Small improvements, small milestones.
Yeah.
Big
We're getting
wins.
there. Look back at this, guys. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Back
real
at
cool.
me. Anyway.
But
No, back to
you know,
Chad.
and really it all depends on like how much effort are you putting into the writing of your story. Is everything hinging on that suspense, or is the suspense part of the story?
True.
That's really the make or break point. Is if you make suspense the cornerstone of your film, it's not going to work on rewatch, which is not necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of films that work really well with just one viewing and then you never watch it again.
I agree. Adam Sandler does a great job of that. You have
Jesus
those cutscenes.
Christ.
You have the... You're probably wondering how we got to this point.
Yeah,
I think that does a great job of suspense. It's more about the journey that speaks of.
All right.
According to all known
Gibson
laws of
sides.
aviation, the bee should not be able to fly.
That's actually not true, by the way.
It's the bee movie.
I know it's the B movie.
Do you even
Meme
like
it up.
jazz, man? Do you even
You even like
jazz?
jazz.
Jesus.
Jazz music stops.
But yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up there. We're kind of running a little long, and I know you said you had to get rolling today.
I have to go and raid, guys. So any of my guild watching this is me doing things before I even go back over there. Yay!
Oh man, it's like a time capsule.
I told you we don't exist outside of this square.
Yep.
Good deal.
We don't.
Yeah. So we'll just wrap it up for. Jesus Christ, Annie. We'll go ahead and wrap that up there for today. Thank you so much for watching or listening if you're listening on the SoundCloud.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Shout out to my Crave people. I know a lot of those people are watching this.
That's
for some
awesome.
reason.
Hey, we're happy to have anybody. We're happy to have
And
everyone
that
along
Russian
for the
guy,
ride.
I want you to comment again.
Yes.
Just
Like,
just
hey,
say
it was
something.
just really cool, like, having someone comment on
Yeah.
a video that we don't know. Like, that's just a novel experience.
Even if we do know you, comment anyway. 'Cause
Yeah.
we like it. We're
Just literally anyone comment. We reply to every comment.
we'll
We
do
need
it.
validation.
Except the Sailor Moon comment. Because I can respond to that person in person.
What
Unless you
mean?
do want Sailor
That was
Moon,
a stranger. That
then
wasn't me.
comment on it. If you're Team
Jesus.
Danny, why not?
All right. So,
Thanks,
tangents,
guys.
wrapping it up. We'll see you next week.
Have a good
Bye.
night.